Hello, I am Lunge the dinosaur. Let us not go extinct. On the eve of selection, Hillary Rodham Clinton will be installed in the presidency tomorrow, and she will continue the mediocre policies of Obama, walking the thin line between the increasingly dire needs of a dying planet and a desperate people of the world. And the rule of those who never stray outside the bubble of billionaires. I could run down a long litany of ominous signs that our world cannot continue the way it has in this age of empire. But they have been made over and over since I was a young teen, just starting out on this long journey. It sure has been a lot like my hero, Frodo Baggins, leaving the Shire for Mordor. Unlike Tolkien's Lady Galadriel, Hillary Clinton is about to put Sauron's ring on and take the power. And we have no choice but to love her and despair. The Empire will continue to bomb the Third World into terrorism and sledgehammer the ancient cultures in the Middle East in the name of the cash crops of oil and heroin. And the financial money speculators will continue to rule the world in the name of the United Empire of Corporations. I'll be taxed. Oh, yes. I'll be taxed in favor of the rich, while World War III steals the lion's share of our hard work and productivity again for the 100th year in a row. Warmongers and industrialist bazillionaires will go on poisoning the world with nuclear bombs in order just to feed the oil-soaked death machines of empire. The ice caps will melt. The winners will be forgotten. Will my life get worse if Donald Trump is elected? No, if by some miracle the establishment would allow it. Either way, I will probably still have my good job online that I love. And I'll make enough money to stay just ahead of the taxman. And perhaps buy a few toys. Or maybe go on a trip. After all, I have no children. And I don't need any help these days. So I'll be fine for a while if I don't lose my job or get sick. But it won't get any better either. I won't see weed legalized in this ultra-conservative empire state. And get some poetic gigs in this alcohol bar town. There'll be no green jobs program. There'll be no green jobs program and no health care or prison or police or government reform. And the rich will not let go of their stranglehold on the progressive change. Mass transit will still suck. I'll still be lonely and unrecognized. My peace and love values of kindness, courtesy, and personal morality will be laughed at still. My art, music, and poetry will be ignored and nothing will change. Except there will be a lot less clean water, air, and soil, more medicinal poisons, and less medicinal and holistic herbs. New technologies will be suppressed, of course, and the truth will become a rare treasure indeed. But the real point is, folks, I am not surprised. It has been this way since the Kennedys were murdered. The empire pulled off the coup of the century and left us with the fascist consequences of lies and murder. Am I cynical? Huh. I find it amazing that the good people who still have their comfy lives just don't care if there are bombs dropping on the Middle East and politicians in bed with the big business goons that are ripping off the nation and destroying the future of everybody on Earth. So what do you want me to do about it? I'm not doing it. I'll be glad to comment, but there is no one to vote for the Lunge Party after all these years, except for the few and the brave who follow me on Facebook and YouTube. Still, I hope and pray that the people will wake up before they are flooded under the sea. But I have seen little or no sign that anyone is ready, really, to step outside the tiny circle of their lives and connect with anyone or support anything outside their own small bubble. It isn't just the rich that are oh so certain of their superiority over others and live in a pampered bubble that makes them into the raging ignoramus of the king of boorish conceit, the TV huckster, Donald Trump. Give up cars? Boycott non-degradable plastic? Demand hemp and marijuana be legalized? Protest war? Protest the rich? Save the world from fossil fuel poisoning? No one wants to do anything. Just let it chug on and on the way it has been without a care in the world, while each year it gets a little warmer. The Electoral College will select Hillary, and all the various checks and balances will all get in line. The legislature will let Bernie rant uselessly. The judicial branch will put the legal blinders on, and the media will dance and sing and throw fairy dust in all our eyes with lights and happy music and a fine pair of boobies. Our police will be lawless. Our poor, impoverished schools will continue to be boring, anti-intellectual dungeons of thoughtlessness, to crank out drones for the corporate empire, complete with patriotic sports pre-military training to prepare the generations to fight perpetual war for the profit of the few by bombing the third world oil-rich nations into the tyranny of petro-empire. Cheap heroin will thin the population of the alienated and the depressed. Why? Why? What has caused this tyrannical insanity of the neoliberal militant empire's corporate psychotic psychosis of planetary suicide, enforced by fraud, and fueled by the perversity bred of unchecked power and ambition? The personality of this neoliberal fascist catastrophe of establishment abuse of power that has been garishly exposed by their own gross underestimation of the literate populace. Generations have grown wiser with the information explosion erupting in their own eyes and ears and media beyond the superficial mind-numbing anti-intellectualism. They have found their voice. They are not the kind of person seduced by power. They are rebellious patriots, not of the nations of the earth, immersed in the separate egotistical cultures of colonialism, but dedicated to the whole world and the whole state of all mankind. They have discovered the love of wisdom over wealth and pleasure over accumulation, an equal and free fellowship over competition and exploitation. This new consciousness would rather have a philosophical smoke and not the mind-numbing brutality of too much alcohol. They want to talk freely and listen to soft poetry and music that has something to say about how to save the future. They don't want a supermodel party trophy wife. They want a true and honest partner of their own choice and preference who can be trusted. They don't ever want to convince you of how great they are, but how great you are. They don't want to pander to you for your vote. They want you to vote according to your own convictions. Mythically, I have put it as John Wayne fighting John Lennon. That fight is the core of the matter, as two very different consciousnesses have emerged among the male psyche. The old rough and ready, against nature, against the aware and enlightened. The rough and ready want to rape nature for all she's worth until there's no nature left to live on, and the world has been transformed into the very burning sulfur pit of hell they so childishly are afraid of in this wondrous living infinity of eternal being. The new love and peace evolution wants to honor nature with reverence and manage and foster her life processes. This new and gentle humanity is wise and informed, and it is gaining ground every election cycle, as George Bush's obvious narrow-minded hypocrisy was exposed, only to reveal an even worse blundering buffoon of corporate narcissism, promoting the absurdity of the Donald, leaving John Wayne behind and going all the way back to their idol Adolf Hitler for mythic inspiration. The corporate media then began making celebrity apprentice billions, while strong-arming the public with their weakest hand in order to install the Empress of Empire, Hillbilly Clinton, the two-headed monster of the ruthless and greedy peasants turned to ravenous and corrupted bazillionaires, working to keep the well-oiled war machine burning away and clogging the whole world with its black, oily stench, mixed with the blood, guts, and horror of young people subjected to constant combat and repeated deployments until they are blowing their brains out, homeless and starving in the streets. These tensions are tearing our planet apart, and we will not win. Like tomorrow, when the corporations win the election and the people lose again, we will lose another chance to save the future and continue ever faster toward extinction. The Green Party may make 5% so they can come back and try again when things are 4 more years worse than they are now. Maybe much, much worse. Will we still be here making these unseen videos and writing these rarely heard sermons? For 4 years, I have been trying my best to save us from extinction. But no one has listened to a word beyond the very few committed souls who can hear the truth when they hear it. I have followed this election in these pages as I did in 2012. I saw the hope of Bernie Sanders dashed to pieces, and I saw the dignity, integrity, and intelligence of Dr. Jill Stein, and the wisdom and rebellious spirit of the great Ajamu Baraka take its place. I heard the political therapist, Debbie the Sane Progressive, scream, "She stole it! She stole it!" in the streets of Philadelphia. I saw my old buddy Bill Maher shrill for Hillary, and Michael Moore and Robert Reich fall for the Trump scam, and Sarah Silverman go feminine Nazi on Bernie, while the DNC destroyed the Constitution and shamelessly and criminally insulted our intelligence. I saw Native First Nations rise up, put down by corporate pipeline riot police, while the president and the frontrunner said nothing, and Dr. Jill Stein got arrested. And I saw that stain on humanity revealed by WikiLeaks, the strange and twisted webs of deceit and corruption, of unchecked power, and the dark, slimy underbelly of those so dulled by wealth and satiated by endless pleasure that only perversity and humiliation and violence can move them. Laws are instituted by men to constrain by consent of the governed the selfish interests of those who exploit others to live a life of idle pleasures by craft and crime, by murdering those who would oppose or expose them, and by stealing the hard-earned money of many to improve their own lot in life beyond all measure or reason. Thieves and liars and gangsters and cutthroat murderers parade before us on brightly lit screens, made up thick with the facade of celebrity, thin and superficial, and motivated not by the high ideals of statecraft and the hope of a new and miraculous future for all people on earth, but motivated solely by a ruthless and singular, perverse and tiny greed for power and for riches and for fame, desperate to prove their entitled superiority yet again with the false equivalency of a brutally enforced acclaim built on fraud and extortion. The Republicans want to reduce government to let the ego-driven exploitation of the corporations dominate the markets. And the Democrats want to use a bigger government to enforce the will of corporations across the world. Both parties ready, willing, and able to spend $666 billion per year to carry on with more righteous displays of militant, state-sanctioned murder in the name of terrorism on terrorism. And all the big happy business of the world goes on, and the good people are comfortable in their lives of superficial mediocrity, and the poor are invisible ghosts of the underclass, while the rich party on higher and higher in the stratosphere of their floating ivory towers of insane wealth, drinking the fine red wine of the blood of innocence, while the planet burns away below their air-conditioned private jets filled with old perverts and young children drugged and their bodies bought and paid into sex slavery for the cheap price of a worthless soul. After me, the flood is the only warning I can give you now. I say, let them take my head off for daring to tell the truth. I have spoken it to the world, and I have not used a pseudonym to hide behind. I wear the mask and speak in a voice of power and hope that you will hear me and understand that we are rapidly approaching the fate of the dinosaur. They got way too big for their Earth to support them, and when disaster struck, they were too small-minded to do anything about it, and they died out. This election has proved one thing. We are no longer a republic. We are a militant empire and have been since 1963. The Empress wears no clothes and doesn't care, for she is shameless in her denial of her power, built on the betrayed blood and bones of friends and enemies alike. Her court jester, the orange clown of bankrupt commerce, will now become an elder statesman, and his foolish utterances and self-proclaimed proclamations of his singular ignorant genius will be pondered by amazed corporate puppets on the Sunday morning political programming shows. America always does the right thing, said Winston Churchill, when she has exhausted every other possibility. Let us hope that we have seen the darkest hour before the dawn, and perhaps in 2020, the gray rain curtain of this storm will pass, and then we'll see it, a far green country under a swift sunrise. Thank you. Let us not go extinct. I'm Lunge the Dinosaur, and I approve this message. Thank you.